Welcome to part 3 of the guitar pick tray series. Today we're going to go over the first couple of tool paths for Operation 1. It's exciting because we'll go over the tool paths in Fusion 360 and then we'll see them performed on the Tormach. So we'll go ahead and dive in. The first thing we want to do is remove the 50 thousandths worth of material that is on top of our model. So to do that, we're going to use a facing operation. So we're going to go to the 2D drop-down menu and come down and select face. You'll notice we popped up a menu to the right-hand side of the screen. We now need to select the tool we're going to use. So you'll notice I already created a local library that has all of the tools which I use on my Tormach. So I'm going to open that up and I'm going to select the Tormach 38mm face mill, and it's actually 1.5 inches in diameter. So I'm going to select that. We'll now go over the speeds and feeds. We're going to run at 7,500 RPM and 50 inches per minute. That gives us, in terms of feed per tooth, almost 2 thou. We're at 1.6 thou. We'll then go to our geometry tab and we will select the outline of our stock. Oops, let me try that again. We'll select the outline of our stock. We'll then go into the heights tab, and in the heights tab we're going to specify where our operation begins and where it ends. So if we visualize removing the 50 thousandths worth of material off the top of our stock, we'd want to start removing material at the top of our stock, and we want to finish removing material when we are at the top of our model. So what we're going to do is just verify our top height and our bottom height matches that. And indeed it does. We're going to begin at the top of the stock and we're going to end at the top of the model. So we are good to go there. Next, we're going to go into the passes tab where we have some more interesting parameters to go over. And what I want to mention here is that if you hover over any of the parameters, so for example step over, Fusion 360 brings up a definition and a nice diagram, so it will help you if you ever get lost. So the step over specifies the horizontal distance between passes. So a rule of thumb for me is I always use somewhere between 50% to 75% the diameter of the tool. I feel if you use more than that, you can end up with cusps. So cusps are little ridges that you can not only see but feel on your surface between your passes. So in my opinion, if your step over is too large, you basically degrade your surface finish. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with 50%. And since our diameter is 1.5 inches, we are going to enter 50% of that, which is 0.75. Okay. So now we are going to select the direction in which we are cutting. I'm just going to hover over this. So again, we can look at the diagrams. So both ways would allow you to cut in both directions. So if you look at the diagram, you would kind of perform a snake-like motion or an S-like motion where you go off the part and then you come back in and you mill in the opposite direction. Personally, I think if I mill in one direction, I get a better surface finish. So I'm going to choose climb cut. What that's going to do, instead of performing the snake-like move where I go right to left and then left to right, when I get to the edge of my part, I'm going to perform a retract, come back over, come down, and take the next pass, all in the same direction. And you'll be able to see that clearly in the simulation. So the next thing I want to do is enable multiple depths. This allows us to specify how deep we are going to cut into the material for each pass. So I want to be at 20 thousandths. And because we are 50 thousandths below our material, that means we're going to take 3 passes, 2 at 20 thousandths and then 1 at 10 thousandths. I'm also going to select both sides. And let me explain to you what that does. Let me click on the top here. So again, we're going to start machining our material from right to left, and then we are going to work our way from the bottom of our stock to the top of our stock. If I don't select both sides, when I get to the top of my stock, I'm going to perform a retract, and I'm going to come all the way back here to the lower right hand corner and then start my next pass. If I select both sides, instead of retracting and coming all the way back down to the lower right corner, I will just go ahead and continue climb cutting, but we'll go from top to bottom this time, and it will just save us some time. So I will go ahead and select that box. The next thing I'm going to do is go to the linking tab. We'll go back to home view, and I want to make sure I have extend before retract selected. And what this ensures is that between our passes, our tool goes all the way off the edge of our stock. If our tool were to stop and transition into the next pass on top of our stock, we run the risk of creating imperfections such as swirl marks, and we want to avoid that. So we're just going to make sure our tool comes all the way off our stock before we engage into the next pass. All right, so that's it for our facing operation. We'll go ahead and click OK. And now we will simulate. So you can see that Fusion shows us what our tool path looks like. So I'm now going to right click the operation and go to simulate. And again, simulation is powerful because what it's going to do is show us how the tool path is going to be performed on our machine. And if we were to say have a collision with our fixture, which in our case is a vise, it would flag that and it would let us know that we did something stupid and we could injure our vise, ourselves, or our machine, which we don't want to do. So what I'm going to do is maybe slow down just a hair and click play. And now you'll see we're cutting in one direction. We're going from right to left, retracting, coming back down and re-engaging in the material and working our way from bottom to top. And then what we're going to do when we get there is go back down without performing that retract that I mentioned earlier. So what I want to do now is we'll just go to the front view, and remember how I said we enabled, let me slow it down a little bit. We made sure that our tool leaves the stock before re-engaging the next pass. So let's go ahead and verify that. So we'll slow it down. Let's see if we can see that. We may need to orbit a little bit. There we go. So we are all the way off our stock before we engage into the next pass. I'll go ahead and I'll stop the simulation because I think we can get a better view of that. I think it's important because you definitely don't want those swirl marks. So now we'll click play again, and we'll just slow down as we get to the edge. Voila, your tool is all the way off. Beautiful. So now I'm just going to go back to our home view and let the tool path finish, and then we will see this performed on the Tormach.